Good evening, friends. Meeting again in the session of philosophy, and we'll start with today's session. Yesterday, we have started with the chapter number 15 from the Kant's philosophy, that is protection from sickness. And when he tried to explain the concepts of what happens when two dissimilar diseases meets inside one human being, and how this dissimilarity not able to produce a cure. And the three conditions which already Hahnemann have mentioned, that what happens in nature when two natural dissimilar diseases meets inside the one human being. The first condition is that if the original older disease is stronger, it repels the action of new one. In the similar manner, the allopathic drugs never works if the disease is stronger, and we have taken the example of tuberculosis. The second condition is that if the new disease is stronger and older is weaker, the new runs its course, temporarily suspends the old one. And when its course is finished, the old one reappears. And this is how what happens when in the treatment of chronic diseases with the help of allopathic medicine, because there is a dissimilarity. And that's why in asthma, in rheumatoid arthritis, any chronic disease, there is a palliative result which happens because of dissimilarity. And when medicine is discontinued, original disease comes again. And third condition, which is most common in today's era, that is the it when two dissimilar diseases happens to be there in natural human in the natural way in the human being, and which are having equal strength, then they occupy their own place in different organs, happens to be there in one individual, and sometimes even they form the third one, the complex disease. So either it forms the complex or double complex disease. And this is what which generally happens when you continued with long time of allopathic medicines. The original disease remains along with new one appears over there, and that is and the complication of it, and that is what is called as a double complex disease. So these are the three conditions which happens when two dissimilar diseases meets inside one human being, and he has correlated with it. So he has mentioned about it. Let us go ahead what he further wants to say and how to protect from the sickness. So he started with the aphorism number 35. Now he turns towards the aphorism number 36, and what he says. In aphorism 36, another thought comes up. Thus, non-homeopathic treatment, which is not violent, leaves the chronic disease unaltered. To suppress, there is a required state of violence to be brought upon the body. One must do the violence to the economy by enormous dosing, tremendous physics, much sweating, bloodletting, etc., such as was done in olden times. Such treatments tend to subdue or suppress disease for the time being. But when the violence has subsided and the rough treatment is removed, then symptoms come back, but in a more disturbed state than before. The more violent the drug disease that can be established upon the body, the greater the changes in the chronic disease. Violent treatment alters the nature of chronic disease. A new and more intense disease suspends a prior dissimilar one existing in the body. Similarly, just so long as the effect of quinine continues, so long will it suppress and holds in abeyance the disease to which it is dissimilar. Quinine is capable of engrafting upon the economy its own disease from which will last for years and may not stop until it has been antidoted by the medicine similar to its symptoms. But if it is antidoted, that malarial disease which is suppressed will appear in its original form, and patient will say, these are just the symptoms I had in the first place when I was cured by the late doctor so and so, and he cured me with Peruvian bark. So he is giving example of the second condition, what happens when two dissimilar diseases meets, and if the stronger one is newer one is stronger, then it temporarily suspends the original one, weaker one, and it runs its course. And when the action of medicine disappears, the old one reappears. And this happens many times in your practice. You observe these cases. It is not related only with the quinine, but it happens with many allopathic drugs. The stronger the drug, the stronger is the palliation or suppression. Palliation is only the temporary alleviation of the symptoms, but suppression is transformation of disease from less important organ to the more important organ. So here you have to understand that disease is whether disease remains only in palliated form or whether it is going from less important organ to more important organ. And this is possible when you use the violent medicine, strong medicines, which has directly action on the human economy and produces suppression of the original symptom. Then he further said that story is so common that any homeopathy physician who has been doing sound prescribing for years has lots of records of just such cases. The malaria was subdued only because the quinine was capable of producing more violent disease than malaria. Arsenicum is capable of doing the same thing. It can engraft upon the economy, a dangerous disease that will result in very serious condition because arsenicum will completely complicate itself with the solar. So many examples you can see when if you utilize these weapons in material forms. If you just prescribe on the basis of diagnosis that malaria and giving the quinine or a cinchona in material form, it subdues, it temporarily alleviates, it never cures unless and until symptoms calls for it. What exactly he means? It means that patient comes to you with a severe chill rigor at 4 o'clock and he comes to you at around 11 o'clock in the morning and he said, Doctor, I slept normally and I woke up at 4 o'clock and whole my body was shivering. There was tremendous rigor, and thereafter it remained nearly half an hour. Thereafter, I got very severe heat, and now sweating has started. I'm feeling little bit better, and that's why I'm here in front of you. This is the first patient who said to you. Clinically, it is malaria. If you examine or investigate, it is a malaria. But here the remedy never depends that you give the quinine or you give the cinchona. If you give cinchona in material form, it will suppress, but it will not cure. But if you give on the basis of symptom similarity, chill at 4 a.m., if you open the Kent's repertory and find it out, chill chapter, chill at 4 a.m., you're going to get a Cedron only remedy over there. And if you give Cedron to the patient, depending on its features, at the sweating stage of the patient, then there will be no further attack. Because here you have choose the line of treatment on the basis of law of similars. But if you are using it on the basis of law of dissimilars, just on the basis of diagnosis, then it never works. Then it only palliates. And this is what he wants to tell to you, or this is what he wants to explain to you. So even if you don't apply law of similars, it will definitely going to palliate or suppress, but never cure. In some cases, we have complexity of horrible things, like one built upon another. And when this is so, in treating them, the last group, which was removed, will first appear first, which shows that remedy has done its work. And we then go on, do the next, and so on. The different groups of sometimes appears one after another in the distinct form. They must disappear in the reverse order of their coming, as it put on layer in layers, one piled upon another. So if the patient who was brought to you, who has already had fever, then he was treated with some quinine derivative, then that his fever disappeared, then he developed the severe acid peptic trouble, then he has consumed antacids, then again he was better, then thereafter he started getting the cough and he was treated with antitussive remedies and his cough was settled. And now the patient is there with bronchial asthma. So see the layer, first layer was malaria, the second layer was of acid peptic trouble, the third layer was of a cough, and fourth layer was of bronchial asthma. And now in this state, the patient was brought to you and you have taken the totality. And according totality of the presenting symptoms, you have selected a remedy. And that remedy given to him. If it is a perfect simillimum to that specific state, then that remedy definitely works. that settles the asthma and his cough again returns. Because Hering's law of direction of cure, the last part, it the cure must take place in the reverse order of appearance of the symptoms. Then cough comes. Sometimes that cough can be settled with the same remedy, or sometimes it requires another similar. Then that will disappear. Then patient again starts getting the acid peptic trouble. Then he comes to you. If you find it out right, minimum for that state, again patient settles and his original symptom might come, that is the fever with chill. And now on the basis of that, his specific totality, whatever maybe the remedy comes, whether it is Syncona, whether it is Cedron, whether it is arsenic album, whether it is natramur, depends. Whatever may be the patient's remedy for that state, if you give to that patient, then patient will be completely brought to the perfect cure. Because it goes in the reverse order of appearance of the symptom. And if it happens, you are on right path. If it never happens, you go from less important organ to more important organ, and that creates a problem. So here he has mentioned the role of homeopathic medicine, and it should bring again the cure in the reverse order of appearance of symptoms. From all this, we see how it is possible for two different diseases to occupy, as it were, two different corners of the same economy, one manifesting itself while the other subdued. We also see how they may exist in state of complexity. In the first instance, they do not combine. In the another, they do and become complex. We also see the priority. We also see the propriety and use of observing that what treatment has been administered to the patient. It is not always possible to do this, and it is not impossible to know whether each one of these drugs have established its own disease. So many patients comes to you. Nowadays, I get more pathological cases. And those pathologies are the results of complexes. They are the complexes which develop because of they have been treated for longer time of durations with the allopathic medicines. And many times you get an original disease along with newly formed disease. Patient who is long continued on the steroids comes to you with a diabetes mellitus. Actually, he had a rheumatoid arthritis for which he was taking steroids, and he comes to you now with the diabetes mellitus. So the original disease is as it is, along with new diseases formed, that is the complex. Then you ask what medicine you are taking, and then you see that it is new disorder, a complex develops because of long continued use of the medicine. So how can you cure? You can cure them. You have to take into consideration all those details. Then you gradually reduce the medicines. You have to ask the patient the concept of health. Then he should follow the diet. Then he should follow the regimen. Then he should get the right medicine which covers the whole complex. And this patient will not going to settle within a day or two. It requires long treatment. Here you have to remove the effects which are caused because of medicines also. At the same time, you have to treat the original diseases. Here the remedy which comes plays the role along with its management. Here the role of and the role of auxiliary measures comes. So this is too important for us to know. So here Kent wants to explain to you that many a times you get such types of complex diseases in your day-to-day practice. And these are the results of long continued use of strong medicines. And these are nothing but the last condition which Hahnemann mentioned. What happens when two strong natural similar dissimilar. Okay, there was little bit disturbance in between. Let us continue with it. What he further said. Not every drug that is administered is capable of establishing a disease. It is always prudent when symptoms are only partially developed and when the drugs have caused the suppression of symptoms is known to include the antidotal relation to the drug with the rest of the symptoms. That is to say, a selected drug which has a well-known antidote in relation to the drug that causes suppression of symptoms, providing it is also the most similar of all drugs to the few symptoms that are present. In that way, we make as much of similitude as is possible. The similar remedy is most likely of all others to antidote that drug. Do not be laid aside. The administer right away the drug that caused the trouble. The principle of similia is first. And if such types of complexes comes, then how to handle? There are many ways to handle. If you are observing that such and such conditions which have been developed because of specific drug, then there are many ways. Either you give the same medicine in potentized form in order to remove the effects of that drug. Second important thing which you can cause, which you can give, is the antidoting the original medicine with the help of um, medicine, which is specific antidote for that specific injury. So you have to consider what exactly the medicine is consumed. So you many times you have to find it out what patient is on what medicines long. Today, just now, 2 hours, 3 hours back, I had a case of depression, anxiety with depression, and she was continuously on antidepressant drugs since last 4 years, 4 5 years. And patient was little bit drowsy, dull, not having a strength, looking weak. She said that I don't have any interest in anything. I don't want to do anything. I always want to just lie down. I never had interest in anything. And this she has told whole history how this has started 4 years back and how they went to the psychiatrist and then psychiatrist started medicines. We have tried to leave the medicines for 6 months, but again my problem started. I started getting palpitation and I felt nervous and all those things. And thereafter again the problem was persistent, but she was not getting cured. So I asked what medicines you are on, and she was on many. She was on two antidepressants since long time. So I asked them to gradually taper, make a half dose of it, and whatever medicine I will going to start, continue with it. And then she has started with the medicine since today. In such types of cases, lot of things are needed. First important thing, find the right symptom. Second important thing is proper consolation with the patient, proper psychotherapy. Third important thing, giving them confidence, how to reduce the doses. Don't directly stop the medicine because patient is dependent on those medicines. So gradually taper on. So all those things, all those measures which you have to use in treating such types of diseases, and then you can handle. So such cases where complexes are there, complexes never settles all of a sudden. It takes a long time. And where you have to utilize your medicines in a proper manner. So this is most important thing which he is explaining. And then he is directly turning to the aphorism 43 and what he wants to say. That is related with homeopathy. Totally different, however, is the result when two similar diseases mix together in the organism. That is two way. They when to the disease already present a stronger similar one is added. In such cases, we see how a cure can be effected by the operations of nature, and we get a lesson as to how man ought to cure. And then real conjunction takes place, a union as it were, a marriage which results in disappearance of old things and new things come on and exist in the state of order. And this is the last point which he explains. That is what happens when two similar diseases meets inside a human being in a natural state. So if the new disease which is stronger than the old disease but similar in manifestation, the newer one removes the weaker one permanently, and then you confirm the nature's law of cure. That is, the weaker dynamic affection is permanently extinguished in the human being by stronger one if latter, once differing in kind, is very similar to former initial manifestation. So things are rather different in nature. when dissimilar things happens, what happens he has mentioned. And in the similar way, what happens when similar things comes in the human being. And this gives exactly the entity that what law one should utilize, whether one should utilize the principle of dissimilars or whether one should utilize the principle of similars. So here completes the exactly what one should do, how one should approach, and what may be the reason of why Hahnemann came to the conclusion of law of similars and why he left the law or principle of dissimilars. What happens because of dissimilarity and what happens because of similarity. All those things he tried to explain in detail over there. So that's all for today. We'll meet at night at 8 o'clock. Today's lecture is at 8 o'clock with new remedy, ethugacinatin. Sorry, not arum tripal. Arum tripal, not ethusia, arum tripal. So it will be at 8 o'clock, not at 8:30. So take note of it, and we'll meet again with this. And after completing that, on the Monday, we'll meet with the next lecture. Thank you being there. Thanks a lot.